Today, we're going through 240 episodes of The Amazing World of Gumball, from Season 1 to Season 6, to find the most normal Gumball episode. And trust me, this is no easy task. In a show where 1 second they're getting their butts slapped, and the next, they're destroying the entire town of Elmore, there is no such thing as a normal episode of Gumball. To do this, we're going to be going through each season, and find the most normal episode by giving each one a score from 1 to 10. 1 being the least normal, and 10 being the most normal. And at the end of the video, we'll compare the 6 most normal episodes from every season to find which Gumball episode is truly the most normal. But let's get a baseline and start with the very first episode of Gumball, the DVD. Basically, in this episode, Gumball and Darwin rent a copy of a movie called Alligators on a Train on DVD. But after accidentally dropping it in the garbage disposal, they have to try to fix this, and they try everything, from faking a DVD with cardboard, to begging for cash, and even getting a job, but none of that works. After a wild chase through the neighborhood, they finally admit their mistake and go to pay for the missing DVD, only to hear there's a $700 late fee on top of that.
That will be $700.
Run! Hey!
It's pretty normal as far as Gumball goes, except for Nicole smashing through fences and going through multiple neighbors' backyards. So this episode gets a solid 5 out of 10 on the normal meter, because believe it or not, there are way more normal Gumball episodes. But next, let's look at a close contender for the most normal episode of Season 1, The Date. Gumball thinks he's getting ready for a date with Penny, so all the Wattersons try to help him to be the best that he can for his so-called date. He's taken to the dump to get new clothes and money with Richard. He tries to learn manners with Anais and self-defense with Darwin. But when the date finally happens, it turns out that it's actually a funeral for Penny's pet tarantula, Mr. Cuddles. However, Gumball seems to ruin everything by accidentally insulting the funeral and freaking out over a picture of a spider. He somehow redeems himself though by discovering Mr. Cuddles is actually alive, and he was just hiding under the toilet seat. And in the process, he got a ton of bug bites. This episode would almost be a 10 on the normal meter, if it was normal to go to the dump to pick up clothes, or get bitten exactly 150 times by a tarantula. So this episode gets a 7 out of 10 on the normal meter, because almost everything that happened in this episode could have happened in real life, except the 150 spider bites feels a little obsessive. But next, let's get to what I think takes the cake for the most normal episode of Season 1, the third. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin feel bored with each other and decide that they need a third best friend. So they pay Tobias $20 to be their friend for the day. But as soon as he joins their friend group, he and Darwin become best friends, leaving Gumball feeling alone in her place. Gumball tries to hang out with Alan instead to make Darwin jealous. But you can't really play with someone who doesn't even have hands. So after some encouraging words from Alan, Gumball pedals all the way across town at crazy speeds, even setting himself on fire in the process, just so he can reunite with Darwin. I'll give this episode a normal score of 9 out of 10. We're getting close to a perfectly normal episode with this one. Although Gumball catching on fire might have been a little bit unrealistic, it's definitely a contender for this top spot. But now we have to take a look into Season 2. We're finding a normal episode starts to become a little harder to find, but there's one specifically in this season which stood out to me, that being the banana. It all starts when Banana Joe returns a pen to Darwin covered in bite marks. Gumball confronts him, but Banana Joe refuses to admit that he chewed it, so Gumball secretly stabs holes in his glue to get revenge like any normal person would, causing Banana Joe's hands to get stuck, and this even makes him accidentally rip off his own eye. No worries though, as Banana Joe gets new eyes and a mouth like nothing ever happened. But in the classroom, Gumball and Darwin find their stuff trashed and their things ruined, which is the last straw for Darwin. So he breaks into Banana Joe's locker, bites his book, smashes his belongings, and chews on Banana Joe's family fountain pen. When they realize all the damage they caused, they rush to stop Banana Joe from seeing it, regretting their actions. But it's too late, and Banana Joe charges after them in anger, only to knock himself out. Gumball and Darwin beat themselves up to make it look like Banana Joe won, and in the end, they make it look like nothing ever happened. But it turns out he had Darwin's pen the entire time, and the pen was actually chewed by Gumball, who always chooses pens. So yeah, never let Gumball borrow your pens. In this episode, there's not really any big explosions or massive destruction. It's all just a big misunderstanding, which makes me give this episode a solid 8 out of 10 on the normal meter, only because glue removing your body parts doesn't seem the most normal. But now let's take a look at season 3, and I found 2 episodes in this season which stand out to be as the most normal, starting with The Man. It's Granny JoJo's birthday, and she announces that she has a new boyfriend, Bluey. Richard, who still thinks his dad went out to get the milk and is coming back one day, doesn't want Louie to take his mom, which eventually ends up with them in a man-off, from whoever can grow facial hair the fastest to washing themselves like a man, sitting in the manliest way possible, cooking, whistling,
I can do it better with only one finger.
and even dancing, which was actually a trick question as men don't dance. After all of this stuff in the man-off, the final round is sharing emotions.
Yes, all of this was a trick to make you confront man's deepest, darkest fear. Talking about your feelings.
Where Richard finally admits his feelings and accepts Louie as a family member, though he's still grossed out when they kiss, which is totally valid. This episode is an emotional roller coaster for Richard, dealing with not having a dad growing up and seeing his mom with another guy. Yet, Gumball still finds perfect spots to slip in its weirdness, with all of the unrealistic gags in the episode, like growing facial hair really fast, which leaves it at a solid 6 out of 10 on the normal scale. For the last episode of season 3, we got The Egg, which starts with Nicole being stressed out because the Parham family is coming over, and she wants everything to be perfect, so the Watersons can climb the social ladder to try to be even more normal, which seems like a great start for this episode, getting a high score on the normal meter. But things could not go more wrong, because even after dressing up and trying to behave, they just can't seem to hide how weird they are.
Hospital!
Just kidding.
While this is happening, Nicole is pushing Anais into playtime with Billy Parham, hoping they'll hit it off, which they do, and both of them run away to the museum. As the Watersons go after them, at the museum, it seems like they're really getting along, which causes Nicole and Felicity to finally accept each other's differences. But that only lasted a few seconds, as Anais and Billy don't actually click, and in the end, both friendships end, and Nicole punches Felicity. I'd give this episode a 5 out of 10. It's a simple plot trying to stay normal, which seems like it would be good theoretically for getting a high normal score, but the whole episode revolves around how weird the Watersons can get, and the ending feels unrealistic. Now, let's move on to season 4, where there's a few episodes that stand out to me, starting with The Signature. And in this episode, Richard is having a bonding moment with Louie. He tells him he wants to take a step forward and marry Granny JoJo and move to Florida, which I'm sure Gumball would appreciate because he wouldn't have to get those kisses anymore, but Richard won't let it slide. So he tricks him into signing adoption papers, making Louie his son, and canceling the wedding.
Those papers you just signed mean you're now officially my son. So as your father, I hereby forbid you from marrying my mother.
So Louie fights back by adopting Nicole as his daughter, cutting Richard off from his wife, which leaves making the decisions to undo this mess to the man who has the most power in the Watterson family, which would be Frankie, Richard's dad, who left to get the milk 42 years ago and never came back. To fix this mess, the kids put out a message calling for Frankie, who definitely is not living his best life. But instead of helping, Frankie tricks Richard into signing the house over to the oldest Watterson, which of course happens to be Frankie. So everyone races to the city hall to get JoJo and Louie officially married, hoping to make Louie the most powerful man in the family. And this would be because he's the oldest of all of them. At the end, Frankie has a sudden change of heart and even gets to connect with his son. This episode is probably one of the weirdest I've ever seen. First off, the entire concept is just crazy. And second, the house is blowing up, and Nicole becoming a xenomorph like in the Alien movies doesn't seem too realistic. And don't get me started with how they mess up the family tree. 2 out of 10. This episode is the polar opposite of normal, and not a great start for season 4. And it's the only chance a start at season 4 is even gonna get. Legit, every episode in this season is so weird. I can't even find anything slightly normal in here. From Gumball trying to get his butt slapped, to awkward episodes with Hot Dog Guy, this probably has to be one of the weirdest seasons of Gumball. So now, let's move on to season 5, to see if there's anything even slightly more normal in here, starting with the potato. In this episode, Idaho gets really upset with Darwin's obsession with eating potatoes. So to avoid upsetting Idaho, Darwin decides to stop eating potatoes, only to realize all of his favorite foods contain them. So Gumball and Sarah step in, trying everything to help Darwin kick the habit of eating potatoes. From taking away his secret stash, to hypnosis, spooky videos, and even therapy sessions from Mr. Small. But despite all of their efforts, Darwin struggles with his cravings and starts hallucinating singing potatoes. And when Gumball tells Idaho the situation, it leads Idaho to see Darwin. And Gumball has no problem with it, until he realizes that Idaho, the potato, is going to visit Darwin, the potato addict. And they're gonna be completely alone, which is definitely not the best combo. However, Idaho actually brings Darwin a potato to eat, because it turns out he wasn't bothered by Darwin eating potatoes, but was actually bothered by the nickname Brotato.
Potato, you're alive!
Wait, I thought you were upset at Darwin.
No, I was upset at you. I hate that stupid nickname.
This one's a 6 out of 10. It's all just another episode that happens because of Gumball misunderstanding a situation. And this one definitely wasn't the most normal, but I mean, having an addiction to eating potatoes is pretty relatable, I guess. But now, let's look at another episode of season 5, just to make sure we're not missing anything normal. Let's look at the episode The News, which sounds pretty normal on surface value. But instead of this episode focusing on Gumball and Darwin, it's centered on the Elmore News, and some weird puppet dude hosting the broadcast. Throughout the news day, we get all sorts of crazy stuff, like the Wattersons' house catching on fire because Gumball freaked out over a spider, a mix-up of alpacas and a man, toilets going on strike with a sit-in protest, and celebrities Daisy the Donkey and Sally the Snake having a fight on live TV. The sports segment of the news is literally just the reporter yelling sports over and over until he loses it.
Sports, 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 sport! Ba, 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 sport!
And it all wraps up with a weather report fail, where the weatherman's green skin messes with the green screen. I don't think I need to say more. This is probably one of the weirdest episodes of Gumball. 1 out of 10. We're getting farther and farther from normal. So let's quickly go through season 6 and see if there's anything normal in there. And maybe we'll be surprised. Starting with the episode, The Silence. In this episode, Gumball and Darwin are chatting nonstop, until suddenly Gumball runs out of things to say, and Darwin's mind goes blank too. They try Harold's therapy, but he ends up just screaming at Gumball. So next, they turn to Mr. Small's alternative medicine, which only leaves their tongues swollen and things worse than before. They then try to do other things, like online role-playing, with Gumball pretending to be an anime girl, and sitting in strange positions at dinner to get the conversation going. But nothing works. Finally, Darwin says that they should take a break from talking and being with each other, singing a sad song about their relationship, which, funny enough, the title of the song is Out of Sync, and it's literally about them being out of sync. During the song, Darwin accidentally gets stuck in a car, so Gumball has to use Darwin's own way of thinking to track him down. It's a bit ridiculous, but it works, and they share a big hug again in the end. While the episode definitely has some weird moments, the idea of Gumball and Darwin having a falling out is pretty relatable in the real world with any friendship, which will put it at a 7 out of 10. So now to answer the question you've all been waiting for. What is the most normal episode of Gumball? I picked the 6 highest rated episodes from each season based on how normal they are, and we're gonna take a look at all of them one by one and see which one is truly the most normal once and for all. First one up for elimination is the signature from season 4. Yeah, this one didn't stand a chance. The house blows up, Nicole turns into a xenomorph, and Frankie scams Richard out of the house by using a fake family tree. That's not just abnormal, that's straight up unhinged. It's only even here because every other episode in season 4 is somehow worse. So yeah, this is last place by far. Next goes to The Man from season 3. This episode actually has some emotional weight. Richard struggling with a new father figure is actually pretty grounded, but the second they start doing man challenges, like growing facial hair and emotional contests, you know that we're not in the real world anymore. Funny? Absolutely. But normal? Not even close. Coming in at number 4, we have the potato from season 5. Let's be real, Darwin hallucinating singing potatoes and going to therapy therapy over snack food isn't the most relatable plot, but the core of it is just a classic misunderstanding between two friends. No explosions, no evil villains, just emotional support and starch cravings, which for Gumball is decently tame. But now we're down to the top 3, and the silence from season 6 sticks around longer on the list because it hits a real world feeling when you and your best friend are just out of sync. And while it may have been a normal plot, there is a lot of classic Gumball weirdness in this episode, so I wouldn't exactly consider it normal. But taking the number 2 spot for the most normal Gumball episode is the banana from season 2. Everything about this episode screams school drama, from chewed pens to ruined lockers and petty revenge. But one thing bumping this episode down is the fact that Banana Joe pops his eye out. And finally, for the most normal episode of Gumball, personally, I think it's the 3rd from season 1. This episode is just pure social tension. Gumball gets jealous, Tobias replaces him, and he spirals through his emotions to try to fix the friendship. In this episode, you get a normal story any kid can relate to, feeling left out, trying too hard, and wanting things to go back to normal. In this episode, there's no monsters or mutations or any weird typical Gumball stuff you might see. There's just awkward emotions and real consequences. And that's why I think the 3rd is officially the most normal episode of Gumball. Well, as normal as Elmore ever gets. But hey, if you think a different episode should have won, drop it in the comments, subscribe, or I'm gonna delete your Minecraft account.